Hey, welcome to Commerce Hero Live, the live stream here. I am joined today by Tom Karwatka, out in Poland. By the way, if you're in the live chat, introduce yourself, ask questions throughout, anything that comes to mind. Feel free to ask questions and jump in at any time. Tom, how are you doing, sir?
Cool. Hi to all. It's kind of stormy weather right now in Poland, so if I disappear, that's not my fault. But in general, it's great. I'm very happy that I'm inside of building, really.
It looks beautiful. Your background looks looks awesome.
If you see any flashes, just tell me, because I'm not seeing them. If the storm is coming, just tell me.
Okay. If I see like a massive tidal wave getting ready to just destroy you, I'll give you a heads up. So Tom, you are the co-founder, CEO of Devante?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We started the company. Now it's like 10 years ago. With Piotr, who's my co-founder and CTO. Now it's a funny time, I guess, because a lot of these, Magento-based companies are having this 10 years, right? Because we started all around the same time. I just like last year I discussed this with CEO of Intro. No, this year we discussed it, and we realized that all these companies we know are around 10 years right now. So.
Yeah. I just noticed the Inchu 10-year. We got to get them on here too. So that's awesome. And so you guys have been doing, obviously, e-commerce agency, been in the game for a while. You also we finally met for the first time in at Meet Magento New York recently. Yep. And had a great chat and stuff. And what's interesting to me about you guys is all the product that you guys are building. Pretty much every agency at some point in their life tries to build a product in some shape or another, or plans on it.
Yep.
And you guys have done, we're going to talk about open loyalty. Yeah. We're going to talk about, I think there's a couple that seemed interesting to me. So,
Do you remember these times when, all agencies were trying to build their own CMS?
Right.
Because if you remember this, you are really old.
I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely.
But I remember these discussions. Our CMS is better because we have this and that.
Right.
And then, WordPress just wiped out everyone.
Right. At the end of the day, the companies that build these big, platforms like Magento, like WordPress, it's kind of a different beast from running an agency, I think.
Yeah.
And what was well, I would say what was interesting to me about, when we chatted was that you guys, for your different products, you have separate teams, if I recall, dedicated to each product and product owners and things. I thought you had a cool structure for that.
Yeah. So exactly, because we were aware that it's almost impossible to build product inside of, let's say, agency, or we are more like IT company, but still, service-driven company. So we were totally aware that it will be very, very hard, because you know how does it work, right? You start your product, then client suddenly need more help and is angry and is calling you and shouting at you. So what do? You try to help him, right? And you just forget about your product, and then you see that this great startup just get like 10 million of funding, and they are doing exactly the same what you originally figured out, so makes no sense to do this anymore.
Exactly. And it's hard. It's hard when you've got the bigger ticket purchases as an agency, and it's hard to prioritize the $20 a month, $100 a month payments on the product side of things.
Exactly. So that's totally different business with totally different mindset, I would say. So yeah, like we originated as a we call it e-commerce software house.
Say that one more time. E-commerce
software house. So we're in general, our idea is to build software for e-commerce. So we focus more on helping other agencies, other companies to build software that build end-to-end implementations. But we saw that there are a lot of gaps in this ecosystem. So the first gap we saw was for loyalty, and knowing what we just discussed, we decided, okay, let's do it differently. And at this same time, we were introducing tribes structure. So originally, tribes, it's an idea of Spotify. Spotify wrote a great blog post about it, so you can still find it somewhere. And they created like small teams. These teams are totally independent. They could have own mini CEOs. The mini CEO is a tribe master. So everything is like a small companies inside of your company. So we decided that we will build a separate tribe to every future product. And first tribe we built for this open loyalty, we will discuss in sec, I believe. And this really helps us separate, the product from the service-driven company. This help us create like separate P&L, separate budget, separate business plan, and separate resources. And now the tribe is totally independent. So there's no possibility you will take these resources and just move it to the project, which is right, in risk or whatsoever. So this help us a lot, and
it's almost it's interesting when you were describing that with the resources. It's almost like with hosting, with physical hardware, and then you've got these virtual servers, right, where the resources can't be shared outside of those virtual teams or whatever. So. And then, so backing up a little bit, give us kind of the overview of Devante. How big are you guys? List out all the products you guys are building.
Okay.
And give us the overview, because you guys are doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So to sum it up, is like we're about 150 people right now in our office in Wrocław, is in Western Poland. So we are very close to Berlin, Prague, and Warsaw, just in the middle of this, between these three capitals. We just started also small offices in Austria and in Germany. And basically, we earn majority of our revenue from Magento and Pimcore. These are two the biggest revenue lines for us. But on top of that, we are building our own products. First product is Open Loyalty. We call it like Magento for loyalty. So the model is quite similar to Magento. So there's open source license and enterprise license. And the second product is View Storefront, which is pure open source MIT license, very, very open product. To be honest, we don't have any clue how we earn money with it. But I think like time will solve this. We are very excited about this product, and we also experiment with other products which are just smaller and in this proof of concept phase. But we know that in future we will more and more product driven, and we've just finalized our strategy for the next, I would say, 4 or 5 years. And in this strategy, we will, do the implementations, the projects. Will help other agencies to work with clients, would help them with tech side of their business. But in parallel, we will build our products, and these products, the know-how came directly from implementation projects. So always when we see a gap somewhere, we try to think about the product to fill the gap. So I think that's more or less about us. Just one small add-on. When you think about projects, we do a lot of B2B projects. I know it's hot topic right now, but we're in this business for very long right now, because B2B clients, they need all our products. That's very good fit for us. And we do these projects mostly in Europe. So Germany, Nordic countries, UK, Poland, of course. So we think about ourselves as a just European software company.
That's fantastic. So many things to jump off into. By the way, the office that you started in Germany is brilliant, because the German market is incredible. I've done one placement and have some leads out there and stuff like that, but I get the sense that they want somebody local to them, ideally that speaks German or some German, but at least local. So that's a smart strategy. I think you guys also have a sales office in the UK that you kicked off recently, which also is really smart.
We're still starting this. It's very hard, to be honest. But I totally agree about the German market. It's not so crowded. Germans are exporting, so they're very open to work with companies that could help.
Hey, are you back?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh no, we're gonna have to restart the stream. That's the same thing that happened yesterday with Ben Marks. Man, Google Hangouts are crazy. But sorry, where you were talking about German market, Germans being open to exporting and things like that.
Yeah. So, but basically, I'm finished.
Okay. Yeah, no, Google Hangouts, man. I got to figure something out. It's incredible, but sometimes it's not.
It's because of the stormy weather, like really.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not your fault.
Last time it only happened once yesterday, so hopefully it won't happen again. So yeah, so many things to jump off into the I mean, you're hitting all of the hot topics: B2B, PWA with View Storefront, and a lot of interesting things to look at. I don't even know where to start.
I will ask, like, typical German client. Where is your agenda, man?
Oh yeah, right. Where's your agenda? Should have been prepared 6 months ago or something like that.
Absolutely, to the minute.
So what are you seeing with B2B? Oh, and then you also mentioned, of course, PIMcore, which PIMs are also pretty interesting right now. So, what are you guys seeing around B2B, specifically around? Have you guys done much with Magento's B2B product yet?
Yeah, so for B2B for us started like in 2011. We've built our first large implementation of B2B system back then. So it was like Magento 1.4, 6, something like this, very old from today's perspective. There were no B2B support. So we've built everything from the scratches, like, all these crazy B2B functionalities, like you can pay with credit, with the trade credit. You can negotiate the price. Lots of functionalities like this. So we learn, B2B the hard way, like figuring out everything and experimenting a lot. And the first project was a large success. So the company in like after 4 or 5 years, they move about 80% of their revenue from offline to online. Doing 150 million euro revenue annually, so not so small. And then they grow even more with this B2B channel. So we learn a lot how to not only build a commerce platform, but how to do this digital transformation, which is so sexy word right now. How to really convince clients to use system, how to keep salesmen motivated, which is super important and super hard.
The other thing we forgot to mention in all the stuff you're doing is the AI kind of sales bot that you guys are messing around with around that whole topic of motivating salespeople and stuff like that.
Yeah, indeed, but it's very experimental. So yeah, but we are thinking about how to help the end clients of B2B clients on board and use platform. And one of our idea is to create this machine learning back software that could go through all your emails between your sales reps and clients, then figure out what's the deal, what's the attachment, what's the offer, what's the stage of the deal, and then upload everything automatically into a Magento client account. So this is why are we doing this? One, because sales reps, they really need this kind of help, because they're losing the feeling what's going on, because there are more and more clients. And the second thing is, clients really hate to input data manually. So when you log into the B2B platform as a client and you see that all your historical deals are already there, you feel like home. So the onboarding, process is much more successful then. So, right. When we start thinking about B2B, technology isn't crucial. It's very important, of course, but the crucial processes are about onboarding and about getting management board involved. If you ask me, because we started very early, so then we saw 20 B2B projects very closely, and of course some of them were not very successful. So if you will ask me about one success inhibitor, it's management board involvement. So if management board is involved in B2B commerce, the chance of success is, I would say, 10 times bigger than if they are not involved. Because you need to change, so many things inside of your organization. It's not a job of e-commerce manager, because you need to fire some people, you need to hire some people, you need to change, for example, motivational plans of sales guys.
It's like it really is, that you use the term digital transformation, which is a bit of a buzzword, but it really is that. It really is a bit of a transformation when you have this large company. Maybe they're a wholesaler, manufacturer. They've been writing things on paper for decades. So it really is like a bit of a transformation there. By the way, you guys are a Magento partner, right?
Yep.
Okay, because some things popped off on Twitter today. I'd put some stuff up talking about a cloud, and I just when it comes to the B2B product, I'm always just interested in, like you talked about, seeing the gaps What are the gaps in the B2B? I'm always just interested in what's the reality of the situation. At the same time, I know that as a partner, you know, you have to be supportive. I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, but I'm curious, your thoughts on the B2B product, what gaps you see there. You don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but it's something that I'm curious about. I'm thinking about a lot. So
yeah, I could be really open here because you know, we
and that's not to say I completely believe you when you say that really the biggest problem is not technological, and I think that's a really interesting point to make. But being a nerd and stuff, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so I could be really open here, and I think like we gather some experience. So we built B2B from the scratch with M1 a long time ago, right? So we know what functionalities were missing. Then we work a little bit with Oro Commerce, and we have one successful implementation of Oro Commerce, which is up and running, and you know, client is very, very happy. We've been a SAP hybrid partner for a while, so we know something about the system also. And of course, we know M2 B2B because we're implementing this right now for one of our clients. So the conclusion is like Magento. I'm really honest with Magento. You can ask Magento guys, especially
there you
go. Partner.
This is why I like you. I could tell you're a straight shooter.
Yeah. So I could tell a lot of tough stories about Magento, but here with this B2B, these guys are really good. So the functionality set is really is designed the best possible way. So we saw, with this case I've described you, after 6 years of development, we really understand what is needed, what is the core, right? What is the, let's say, MVP of B2B, minimum viable, B2B, right? And when we saw the list of functionalities, first of Oro Commerce, we like it. It looks like, okay, these guys are doing a really good job. We need to work with this Oro Commerce. That's for sure. But then we saw a feature list of Magento B2B, which was, I would say, not so broad. Was shorter than for Oro Commerce, but they picked this every feature so successfully that really we compare it and it looks like, okay, these guys, they address all important needs. You can add something here or there, but you can build really successful B2B websites using this. So really good job. I think they think a lot about it, and they still are thinking a lot about it, about the features, but the feature set is really well designed. Nice. So yeah, that's really good job. That's really good job. We like it a lot.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. So, and I managed to get somebody on the Magento agency. We're gonna do an interview with Yoav and kind of talk through what. It's funny. I think you said talking.
Fingers crossed for this guy.
Yeah, talking with Yoav about B2B is like talking to Elon Musk about how to build an electric car company. But at the end of the day, it'll be talking about where one's a fit, where's the other a fit, and I think that'll be an interesting conversation.
For sure, I will watch it.
Okay. By the way, we got Max Bronco in the room. Shout out to Max. He said, remember to check out the Magento Dev channel. Oh, hey, my brother Devin's in here. What's up, Dev? So feel free to introduce yourself, ask any questions if they pop up. So we've talked a little bit about B2B, some of these larger companies. You've got your loyalty product. So what's the gap that you saw in loyalty software, and what's been your approach to handle that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with loyalty, the story is quite interesting because while working on e-commerce project, we saw that first we saw that the retailers are struggling with I would say omni-channel, another buzzword, but they really struggle with that. Why? Because they pay high rents to attract many clients every week to offline facilities, and then they pay again to attract the same clients but online, and exactly the same clients, right? Then they pay to Facebook, to Google, and so this is just insane. And when we start talking with C-level guys of these retailers, they were really really pissed off on that. So of course, selling to an existing client is better idea than just bringing new one every time you would like to sell something. So of course they should attract these clients to offline facilities somehow, and then move them to online. That's quite easy if you think about it. So we were curious what's wrong with the model. We discussed with them and occurred that loyalty programs are very good idea here. So because when client is visiting you, it's very easy to onboard him to loyalty program, and then having the guy in a loyalty program, you can send some digital messages to him. So what's wrong with this? Why are they not doing this? It occurred that there are two factors. One factor is that implementation of typical loyalty program, it's quite complex, could be very expensive, and it's very hard to estimate ROI.
By the way, just real quick, sorry to jump in. So what I'm curious in the context of this is like the type of company. We've talked about some of these, huge companies doing digital transformation, B2B. Maybe some have brick and mortar and online, and then you've got simpler online only stores where loyalties may be simpler. So did you have a particular type or types of companies in mind for this that you're tackling?
Absolutely. Yes, of course. So for us, the gap is exactly in the moment when you pay twice for the same client. So the gap is especially visible with omni-channel retailers, because for every channel they pay separately to acquire clients, right? That's the sweet spot for us. And if you are just doing pure online commerce, loyalty is quite easy, onboarding is quite easy, client acquisition is also quite easy. But if you are paying a lot to maintain this offline stores, you acquire a lot of clients through the stores, right? But it's hard to move them from offline to online. That's the problem. Loyalty could be cure for that, but somehow is not. So I investigated by myself about 50 guys from this omni-channel retailers, sit with everybody, and just have an interview. What's wrong with the loyalty? And they told me the implementation is very expensive and the ROI is hard to figure out. So they're afraid of investing in this. And the second thing, what they share was integrations are a pain in the ass, because they usually use some POS systems which are outdated, and it's very hard to connect with these systems. So that was our starting point, how we could do something with it. And we think about Magento, and with Magento there's super cool model built in, because you can start out of the box with Magento, and you can just start your e-commerce without thinking. So then you can measure ROI, and if it's positive, you can invest more. So we know that open source model gives you this flexibility. You can start and add things later, right? But with a typical SaaS model, you can start right now, but then you can't integrate. So we show that it should be open source, because then the IT guys will like it. There will be no problem with integrations. There will be no problem with estimating ROI. They can just start, but we need to make money somehow. So let's add this enterprise license. So we created a model which is like partially open source, partially enterprise license, and it's working really good. So the typical use case is business guy ask IT guy, hey, we need a loyalty program. So how you start today developing the software? You are not starting from writing the code. You are starting from researching the Google, right? So the guy is checking open source loyalty programs, and then boom, you have like our software. He's downloading.
I'm gonna Google that right now. Yeah? I'm gonna Google that right now and see how high
Try it. And after he plays a little bit, probably he built some proof of concept, show it to the business guy. The business guy is amazed, because wow, it's the first time the IT guy built something really fast.
Second organic result, open loyalty. That's you, right? Open loyalty.
Yep. Click it.
Click, click. There we go.
Positive feedback to the business.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's worked like this, really, and then the business guys are asking us about the license. So the whole model of selling is very smooth, is streamlined, because of
what are your numbers look? Obviously, numbers are hard to track on open source stuff, but what are your numbers looking like as far as adoption goes for the open source and the enterprise?
So we measure the enterprise version. So now with enterprise version, every day we get, I don't want to lie to all these people. So with enterprise version, the current numbers are like 4 qualified leads every day. Qualified lead means that that's the right company, more or less, and it's asking about the cost of enterprise license. So we are selling about 2 licenses every week. So
wow,
quite nice for us.
I believe the last time we talked, you had like I want to say you had like 10 total, right?
Yeah.
So you're growing. You're growing. That's fantastic.
We're growing, and you know what's fantastic? Really fantastic thing is that you can acquire clients from really interesting places. We sold like 2 licenses to Vietnam, 2 licenses to China, like to very different places. And you can learn a lot by just trying to understand what these people are doing with your software. That's also super interesting.
Another one of the great sort of positive feedback loops of open source. Can you share what your license cost is, or you like to?
That's the tricky part, because we're just figuring out how the new license model should look like, because we get really interesting feedback, and I think that will be interesting to share with other people who are thinking about their own licenses. So the first interesting feedback was, I was speaking about open loyalty, and one lady, one consultant from the States, she asked me, okay, yeah, and what's the cost? Like this. What's wrong with you guys, or with the software? Why is it so cheap?
Why is it so cheap?
Why is it so cheap? And aren't you ready yet? And
Did I say 100,000? I meant to say 400,000.
No, I wasn't as fast as you. I made up story like, it's a price list for Europe because the countries here are so small.
Countries are
She
small.
won't bought it. She won't bought it. Yeah. And the second story from Asian country was like, so we gave the price. That was like financial institution. They get the price and say like, okay. Yeah, so can you send us contract for 5 years in advance payment? What?
You're like, oh,
What's wrong with us?
Did I mention that we charge more for a 5-year license? We pay. No, that makes sense, and it's something that
So
you're
we
trying to.
need to really reconsider our options. Yeah, because at the beginning our idea was it will be for medium-sized companies, and now some larger companies are buying this. So we will see, right? We will see. It's not very. I think like we are, with the license costs, we are similar to M1 price list, which was rather flat, not so business aligned like the new pricing, which is more like if you earn more, you should pay more, which is, I think, it's totally fair.
Yeah. You're allowed to say that's fair as long as you're paying it yourself. then I totally respect your opinion on it. No, that's fantastic, and congratulations on the success with that. So, but going back to the core issue of tracking offline to online, you talked about how integrations are tricky, and so making it open source kind of solves for that, makes it future proof. But how do you solve that core dynamic of going offline to online? Is it like you train them to give people online coupons that they can redeem online, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, so we are totally flexible with this. So for sure, end clients, they don't like punch cards, they don't like cards, because you will use card if you are loyal to, I don't know, gas station or Walmart or Tesco in Europe. Very important brands which are very important in your life, right? But for typical fashion retailer, you visit store, I don't know, twice in a year, something like this. So if they give you a card, you will lose it, right? So then you will get frustrated because you will remember, you give me this card, maybe I should get some, a bonus, and I lost the card, so I feel bad about it. So we are sure that users should be identified by more digital data, so email, just name or phone number, app. But it really depends on the market, and it really depends on implementation. So, for example, one of our clients, because open loyalty is used, I think, in 30% by startups, because they also need to loyalize users and keep them engaged. So one of our clients is using for example, open loyalty in this web game. So there's like MMO game. Are you familiar with these games? Because I'm not.
Massively multiplayer online games.
Yeah. So they use all these mechanisms from retail in the game, inside of the game, right? So you identify user totally different. Clients from Asia, for example, they are totally okay with QR codes and WeChat and all identity is stored digitally, so it's also very easy. And I think here in Europe and in the States, probably we're more conservative about our data and loyalty cards, etc. So it's very different for every client. But some of our clients, use something they invented the name invisible loyalty program. So they are tracking your behaviors. For example, connecting your transactions from Visa with e-commerce. If you use the same Visa, we know that's you. And connecting this and tracking your behavior, then doing the segmentation, but you are not officially like registered in loyalty program. We're just thinking how to keep you loyal and engaged. And one client is, for example, sending you tickets to the theater, just out of blue, without asking. It's just
That's
like,
awesome.
yeah, we like you. These are 2 tickets for you. If you like, you can use it. If not, just throw it away.
And it's like a fashion company that's just giving you.
That's
awesome.
That's like premium fashion company, and they told us like clients love it because that's something like better than you think, right?
It's like a surprise delight type of thing.
Yeah, and like some of their clients, they told us if you offer them a
discount,
they will tell you, I'm able to pay full price.
Right.
Don't need your discount.
I don't need your stupid discount. Yeah. No, I mean, I think for long-term loyalty, like discounts, I don't know if they're really the way to go for long-term loyalty. I like that approach much better.
Absolutely. I think like what I see, what's working is time-saving benefits. Like, free online delivery, private shopping, pre-sales, concierge, things like this. Like, okay, in next weekend we'll have like sales, but now you're because you are a gold member, you see all these offers like 3 days before, and you can pick what you like online and just collect it offline during the weekend or day before. Or you can pick what you like and then just fit it in physical store, and this will wait for you at some specific hour, right? So it's what's also really interesting. I see one client which is adding you more and more channels of contact if you are better client. So for all of clients, there's like a chat bot, right? If you are like silver client, there's like a chat with real human. Then you will see the phone number, and at the end you will get a private concierge.
Oh wow,
I think
that's really cool.
This is also super engaging, right? Because at some moment they could just call you, like personally, not from call center, and tell you, "Hey, Kalen, there's new collection. We have everything, just for you. It's waiting. You can visit the store, fit it, and that's for you." This is something really interesting.
Yeah, and so how does with that UK use case in particular, maybe the use case for invisible loyalty with the Visa integration, how does open loyalty? You mentioned that you're flexible so that they can build integrations on top of it. But as far as what open loyalty itself does, what's the functionality that's facilitating those types of features and incentives in the loyalty?
Yeah. So like we build the whole engine, which is collecting points for behaviors. So we track every behavior. We integrate all data from multiple sources. Then like count how many points you should get, because you can get points for very different things, right? For referring a friend, for buying something, but maybe buying something at specific physical store, or maybe buying something online and offline in 1 week. So lots of math on this site. Then there's like a segmentation engine, which is analyzing everything what you are doing and figuring out some user groups you are in. For example, clients in risk. So clients or clients that are very close to be the best clients. And interesting strategy is to call these clients and upgrade them before. So, hey, Kalen, I see you are buying more and more. That's super cool. You are at silver level, but you know what? We just upgrade you to the gold level because you are a super cool guy. What will you do after that? You just visit the store, right?
Go buy some stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's this segmentation engine, and then there's like campaign engine, which is figuring out what exact message should I send to every customer at what time and what channels should be used. So these three engines compounded together are building the engagement. So
nice.
the loyalty is something between typical loyalty and marketing automation. For sure, we work with multiple marketing automation platforms, but it's a blurry line, right? So it's not very obvious which system is doing what at some moment. Our goal is to be this engagement platform. So that's something we do.
By the way, shout out to Navar. He's in the room here. It's funny that you mentioned that because I have this saying that all analytics platforms eventually become email marketing platforms, and you're not purely an analytics platform, but the segmentation engine and things like that. And eventually you just got you can integrate with ESPs, but at some point it makes sense to just make it easy to.
Everything is very close right now, right? And then you have the super large, solar packages like Salesforce or SAP, which is basically doing everything, right? Like every single feature you can figure out is there. But the problem is for the client, I guess, that at some point it's really hard to figure out which features should I use. and I think that's that's the huge opportunity for smaller vendors like us, which are more focused, and our pitches, will help you close the omni-channel gap. If you have offline stores and online stores, we could help you connect these stores, and we can help you a little bit with starting this. And that's our selling point.
Right. And so the core segmentation engine is people can throw whatever data they have at those user records, and then you can allow them to segment on all those different fields without having to write a bunch of code. But if they do need to write a bunch of code, they can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally open. So it's built on microservices architecture. So also some clients just use only one or two components and just don't think about the rest of the software. That's also quite common case. Basically, what you say is
nice.
Right. Yeah.
So I got a question from my bro Devin, and a little bit of a different topic, but asking about JavaScript versus PHP. Sort of, is JavaScript taking over PHP? But so I guess the way I think this is an interesting question is, we see what's happening with Magento 2 around complexity in front end. You have 150 developers on your staff. Maybe it sounds like you probably are a little more back end heavy, but how are you seeing things shift with resources back end versus front end?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess, we are more back-end company. That's why the answer, I think, is even more interesting, because we see, let's address Magento in this question, because what we see, I don't know, is it also true in this? You are the right person to discuss this, by the way. We see it's harder and harder to find new developers for Magento, especially the good ones. So new people, when they graduate, they're not very happy with Magento, with working with Magento. But Magento is very stable, but it's not very sexy. Like PHP is not very sexy, to be totally honest. We are on PHP. Yeah. We are on PHP. It's not but I see this, I feel this, right? It's harder and harder to get really good developers which are excited, which are really having fun with the language itself.
But I
And
have to say, part of that I think is kind of an advantage in disguise, because it's sort of fashionable to hate on PHP and things like that, and it's not as sexy. But it was interesting. I noticed that I think Laravel was the most starred repository. They recently surpassed even like Rails, and then I think Magento is the most contributor repository. So I think a lot of people don't realize the extent, even which definitely PHP is not sexy to a new comp sci graduate whatsoever. But it's like it's this powerful thing and community that is almost discounted. Most people, I think, discount it and miss out a little bit. But anyways, I get the larger point that you're making.
Kalen, SAP is also very powerful.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But in the same sentence, I must say that JavaScript is very sexy, and also backend developers are more and more interested in JavaScript. So what I see is Magento is moving into the PWA also, because that's super interesting position to be if you think about long-term goals and building long-term values, bringing new developers to the ecosystem. Because what we see with our software we built on Vue.js, we're onboarding totally new developers. Some of them never heard about the Magento. They just interested in JavaScript. They're very good developers, very excited about technology. So we could bring all these developers to Magento, and Magento is very fast with this PWA if you compare it to other platforms. So that's super cool. And I think that's the part of the story is more and more things will move from backend to frontend, not because it's like technically better, but because we'll have more resources on frontend.
Yeah.
Because all new resources, like almost all new resources, are starting with front-end technologies. So if you think about your strategy as CTO of the company, it's super great to have this these JavaScript guys. You can onboard them. There are new people in IT. They are very excited. They are very open to new things. So that's why it's so important, the progressive web app itself, for Magento and for all e-commerce platform, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. I mean, people get so excited about Vue.js. I think about the Laravel community, Jeffrey Way, and just people in general. And it is going to change the dynamic because, in theory, there's always been front-end Magento developers and back-end developers. But to be honest, to be a front-end Magento developer, you're getting into PHTMLs, you're getting into layout XML. There's a lot of stuff you gotta do. And so if this thing can really flip to where front-end developers are just straight up, whether it's React or Vue, whatever it is, but a super modern front-end component, front-end components, that really is going to change the dynamics around developer resources and the types of developers that are interested. And if you can have a really clean separation between front-end and back-end, that's going to be super interesting.
Yeah. So we strongly believe in this, and that's why we are so happy that the Vue storefront is kind of successful, because for us it's great recruitation tool, and we also get ton of positive feedback from other agencies. Like we must invest in this because we need new developers, and it's much easier to find developers for Vue.js than for Magento, and the learning curve is better. So I think like the headless approach will be more and more popular also because of the resources. It's just much easier to think this way and to hire new people for front to build front-end apps. So yeah, that's really interesting change I see now on the market.
Yeah. So let's talk about Vue Storefront. Very interesting project you guys have been working on. How long have you guys been working on that? What does your traction look like at the moment?
So it's more than a year right now. We first time talk about publicly at this Meet Magento New York when we've met. Now we are at 1.0 version release candidate. The stable version will be released in June. So we're very close. 300 devs on Slack channel in almost 20 time zones is working on that. So really a lot of people, probably more than 20 partners, like agencies, which dedicated at least one resource for this project. And first case studies in the pipeline. So colleagues from Netherlands, colleagues from Italy, and from other countries, they are finishing first projects on Vue Storefront. So really successful project. As I said, we are thinking about it as a bringing something cool to the ecosystem. We see the positive karma. It's really massive. So at this moment, I think the project is in peak, and we are really successful. Thinking about how fast is it going.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's like I feel that all credits are to Piotr and to the team. These guys are doing really amazing job, and I think we will stay very technical. That's also, I think, quite cool because, for example, I saw the discussion. So the guys were discussing about the schedule for releasing the stable version, and there were some business arguments. Better is faster, but then we realized that to keep every developer happy, we need to be really honest with them and let postpone the schedule. But when we publish the version, there will be no minor changes then, and implementation will be easy. So yeah, that's really interesting project. I'm really a little bit separated because, as I told you, different teams,
different tribe.
Yeah, but this is why I like it so much, because I see progress being more like observer than part of the team.
Yeah,
so that's cool. Yeah.
And how does your when you mentioned that, it made me curious about what's your role being involved with the different tribes? Do you have like partial involvement in each of them, or how do you split your time?
Be careful with the answer. And after this talk, I am not CEO anymore. What are you doing?
Exactly do you do around here, Tom?
Yeah, that's the super good question. So I try to build the strategy of the whole company. I'm helping. I try to help our people to build great things, and I think that's the most important part of my job. So if you think more about it, it's also about talking with clients about possible new features we could implement, how we could use our products, or to find a good place where we can experiment a little bit, test some ideas, maybe build some proof of concept. that's something I am doing. So I think it's partially selling, is partially, thinking about the products, but really honestly, like being a CEO of company organized in tribes,
Playing tennis all day long.
It's not very hard.
Well, you definitely make it look easy. No, but so I was just curious.
It's a very good place to be. Like okay, let's not joke for 3 minutes. It's really a good place to be. That's why I think this tribe structure is really game changer. If your company is growing, at some point you will see that it's harder and harder to communicate between these departments, right? You will see your company as a corporation at some moment, and for us entrepreneurs, it's very sad, to see like, oh, this guy is not talking with this guy because they are in different departments. What the fuck? What's going on? We used to be, bunch of friends, right?
Yeah.
So, like, building the tribe structure is getting back to be bunch of friends.
Makes it clear who's your friend and who's not your friend.
And again.
No, and again. I really like I really like that, actually. So then, like, so do they have to ask you permission for anything, the tribe leaders, or do they, like, what's an example of something they'd ask you about versus something they could just do whatever the hell they want?
They should ask if they plan to break a law.
Not that they can't break the law, but they should at least ask.
They should ask, at least. I used to have a boss who told me it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission, and it's part of Devante DNA, because of that. It's easier for us to implement these tribes, because we are totally okay with failures. We're like are really totally okay, like really, and so, to be honest, I don't remember that someone asked me about something. People ask me more like, okay, who can use this? Or what can I do to make this successful? Or what should I, add here? More like, we discuss about things we are doing. And that's also super cool, because we can focus on things we really like. And I don't see like questions. I don't know. Can I buy a pizza? Right? It's just stupid question. If you think it's needed, buy one. It's not a problem. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't want to be too philosophical here, but it's really about just letting people make the decision. I know it's hard. It's I think it's hard for people to take this responsibility at some moment, right? Because it's much easier to just ask.
It is.
And at some point,
absolutely.
Okay, just make your decision.
Yeah.
And then you feel you are responsible. You are real tribe master.
Right.
At this point.
That's really cool. I really like that. I really like that idea. And so, okay, so back to the Vue stuff. So what's and I know we might get into some technical details that you're not familiar with, but what's on a high level, the functionality? Because PWA covers a lot of things. You can do offline transactions. Like, I've built a PWA, but it's sort of like a PWA light. It doesn't really function offline, like for any meaningful purposes. But like, so what elements of what elements of PWA does it cover, and what are some of the things that it does?
Yep. So maybe I will just tell you about our philosophy here. So we would like to build a standalone app. That's our approach. So we cover basically everything. So our goal is like every e-commerce functionality, because our goal is that app should be able to work without the internet. So in our app, user can sit in the plane, just fly from Frankfurt to San Francisco and browse the catalog, add things to the cart, even make an order, and everything is working because everything is really in the browser. Because Piotr figures this out that we should build the standalone app, which is super cool. It's also a lot of work, but it's not a template. It's not things like this. It's just app. It's just standalone app, and you can do a lot of things with this approach. So that's our like idea of that, and I think for different PWA framework components templates, the ideas will differentiate, right? But our idea is to have an app. The app itself is like totally independent from the backend. So, for example, we connected the Vue storefront with M2, of course, but also with M1. And now some clients who are still at M1, they're thinking about removing the front end of M1 and just connecting the backend to our app.
I love
by
that.
doing so, yeah,
that makes the migration path, because the M1 M2 migration path is so brutal. That makes it so much better because they can invest in that newer front end and then leverage that investment.
Yeah, you got it right. And you can after you start with Vue storefront, you just separated Magento from the internet, right? So you're also feeling much safer after that. And then you could have your migration at pace you like, maybe a little bit slower, but you are safe and you have new front end, which is earning money. And you can now we are thinking about different backends we could connect with. We of course connected with our beloved PIM core, which is also important platform in our ecosystem. But some people are building connectors to different e-commerce platforms. So that's why I strongly believe in this front end back end separation and this headless movement, because we see it, like we really see it. And one more thing, with this standalone app, you could also address, as a, let's say, Magento agency, you could work with clients which are not using Magento. We want like 3 really large clients which are really large and we're not using Magento because maybe Magento is not enough for them. So they are using, different solver packages, or they wrote everything by themselves, but they still need a front end. So that's also really nice opportunity for agencies to work with top e-commerce players, which are, having their own IT departments, and they don't need your help with Magento because they are very good or they don't have a Magento, but they still need your help with front end. And being an agency, you have a lot of things, super cool things you could offer these guys, because you know a lot about UX, about design, right? But till this moment, the problem was that you are not specialist in, I don't know, SAP Hybris or ATG Commerce, right? So
the conversation doesn't even start because
they will just don't treat you seriously, right?
Whereas
say,
now,
okay, guys, but
yeah, that's an interesting thing. Whereas now it's like, as an e-commerce specialist that knows how to build front ends and user interaction, user experience around e-commerce front ends, all of a sudden you have access to a bunch of different platforms. You can diversify the platforms that you're working with. I hadn't even thought about that aspect. That's really cool.
You can easily onboard developers, so you can build new revenue stream and new hiring stream, let's say, right? So that's really nice opportunity. Really nice.
That's really cool.
I must add something here. Sorry, Kalen, because if I don't say this, Piotr will kill me later. So Piotr asked me to advertise a little bit that there will be tomorrow. There will be Slack office hours for Vue storefront. So you can join Slack office hours by just visiting our GitHub page and registering in our Slack. And Friday is a hack day for Vue Storefront. There will be like offline and online hackathon.
Nice.
Sorry for this. End of advertising.
No. That's perfect. I appreciate it. As long as the hackathon is offline first and doesn't require internet connections, I think that would be appropriate. So with the 1.0 release candidate, you're done with offline transactions. It's all done. It's all totally working.
Yes.
Nice. Okay, that's great.
Yeah. We are developing like in Devante. We're developing 3 proof of concepts. Maybe one large client will allow us to share soon what we've developed. Really nice. And other agencies are also developing things. So it's like production ready, and there are some implementation, in the pipeline. So yeah. That's cool, because Piotr was, to be honest, Piotr was really afraid of this moment when you change your status from it's a pet project, let's code something, guys, because no one will use it, to the moment when business guys are asking about SLA, and that's totally different story.
Yeah. Just taking, and I mean, you've seen it with Open Loyalty. You've seen it with this, where you start out, you ship, you get it out there, and then you continue to iterate. And you guys are doing a great job with that. And it's really, by the way, shout out to John Davis in the chat. It's really interesting how with the timeline for example, PWA Studio, when it came out, everybody was like, this is amazing, but now we're kind of bifurcated between regular M2 theming and PWA Studio. We have to invest all this time to learn M2 theming, and then who knows when that's going to be sort of deprecated. Is it 5 years? Is it 3? Is it 2? And I love, like, if we can get there faster with PWA, like with what you guys are doing, other efforts in the community, so that like that thing around M1 M2 migration is so powerful, because the migration from M1 M2 is so tough. If PWA is ready now and you guys are doing your 1.0 release candidate now, then it really helps with that migration path, versus if you have to do the M2 regular theming migration now, then wait 3 years, then do PWA. That's a totally different upgrade path.
Yeah, it's hard to sell, I guess. So absolutely, I think it's very, in opposite, it's very easy to sell to business guys. Hey guys, you are still using M1, no worries. We will introduce new front end. We'll increase your conversion by 30% in mobile or even more.
It's a piece of cake.
Yeah. And basically, it's not very risky project. It's only front end. So you can start from proof of concept. We can just, build something. You are in you have a client with very good mood, which is successful, and it's much easier, I guess, to start talking about migration. So for us, it's a really interesting selling tool. I just tried like last week, and it's working perfectly. So clients really like this approach, and you got it instantly also. So there is something in it, right?
Yeah. And so it's funny because up until somewhat recently, the whole headless thing I didn't quite get. It's like, wait, so we're going to reinvent the last 10 years of functionality that's baked into the front end, and everybody's happy about that. But with some of these like really interesting side benefits around resourcing, hiring, recruiting, selling, it's really starting to click for me. But so
yeah, because it's much deeper than you think at start, right? Exactly the same for me. Like headless, okay, another buzzword, right? IT theory. But then you dig deeper and you see, okay, so we can do this, we can do that. we can solve this problem and that problem. So this is really interesting. There's also, I think it's all connected, like, being agile, building separate teams, then having microservices. So these teams could work on different functionalities, which are also independent. So basically, they don't need to ask a CEO for permission to experiment with, one part of the system. Let's say customer account, right? We have like separate team, separate deployment process, and separate microservices. For that, they are able to deliver really agilely. That's super cool. And the headless is just another block on that.
Right.
So if you think about it, all at once, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
And I think, like, if you transform your company from, like, waterfall processes, asking about everything, to this structure of teams which are totally independent, and still you can have a high quality because you have, like, continuous deployment processes in place. I think you can be like 10 times better than your competitor. Like, really, I honestly believe in that.
There's like a 10x improvement.
Much faster. Yeah.
Overall business, kind of the overall business decision is so much easier. It's like, oh yeah, let's do a $250,000 migration to M2 where your entire thing's going to be rebuilt and disrupted, versus like, hey, let's do a new front end. It'll be sexy. It'll be quick. It'll be faster. Yeah. It's like for like 30 grand or 20 grand or 40 grand. Like, absolutely. And then, by the way, you can incrementally worry about that M2 upgrade down the line. It's like, okay, where do I sign? Question for you though: are you guys? You've got to be running into some limitations around the M2 API or the M1 API or the M2 API, and this may be a little too technical, but since you're so reliant on the API, are there any limitations you're hitting? Anything you're trying to get prioritized with the Magento team? And as you answer that, I'm going to plug in the power to my laptop, so don't get nervous if I look like I disappear. Okay.
Okay. So maybe that's a chance for me to take over the channel. To be honest, it's too technical for me. I heard about it once or twice, and I know that we're solving this somehow. But I don't want to be a typical business clown here, talking about things that I don't have a clue about.
There you go.
if you have these questions, just ask Piotr.
Okay.
Yeah. You can directly ask him. Really, as you see, I try to be honest.
I love that, man. There's there's no better answer than simply that when it's not something. When you're not familiar, and that's a pretty technical question. Man, there's so many other things we wanted to get to. I know that you had a list. There's PIMcore. Anything else before we move on? Anything else on the general? I mean, I think we covered the view thing pretty nicely, but
that's cool. I think we should move to the PIMcore, because we could help a lot of people by getting them familiar with the PIMcore. And again, we are quite objective here because it's not our product. So yeah.
Cool. Okay. By the way, TJ, shout out to TJ in the room who's trolling me for not having plugged in yet. Do it all on the fly. Shout out to Martins Saucoms. Thanks for joining us. And then John's telling me to go grab a glass of bourbon. That's really not a bad idea. I should take a cue from TJ and get a little bit of alcohol. And then TJ did mention one thing, I think, in response to that question we just had, which is, if I recall correctly, View Storefront leans heavily on Elasticsearch and less on the APIs. So we'll definitely dig more into dig more into the. You can hit their office hours to dig more into the technical details. But so what are you seeing around PIM? Obviously, you've got players like Akinio on top of Oro. You guys are big PIMcore fans. What are the challenges that you're seeing? You talked about how you plugged it into View Storefront as well.
Yeah. So, I think like I will start from business perspective, because I think like two things are important right now. One thing is like Content is really important, and it's not just about B2B and doing things like you or me or TJ are doing. It's about content in general, and I've at the end of last year I heard from Matches Fashion. It's a fashion retailer from the UK that 35% of the revenue is driven by content. 35%, no, a lot, is driven by content. They produce a lot of content, and people just read the content, see the content, go through the content, and then buy. So this is really super important, and I think one of the cheapest way of generating sales. So this is one thing, but the second thing is content is overheated right now. So we produce massive amount of content, and I saw somewhere that in next 5 years we will increase the amount of content marketing by 500%, and still we have only 24 hours per day. So it's harder to read one another blog post, right? Even if it's good. So what we need to think is how we survive that. If content is important, how can we build better content? And part of this is the technical part. So how can we build our content faster? How can we translate our content faster? How can we make photos faster? How can we make product description faster? So the technical part could be very important, because that save your resources, that shorten the time to market of content. So we were thinking about the right solution for commerce, and originally we were looking for CMS, because one really large client approached us. It's an energy company, and they asked us, how can you help us with generating more leads from our website? We need a new website which is more like commerce driven. So we were looking for good CMS, and we found a PIMcore, and PIMcore is a very flexible CMS built on top of Symphony 3. What we show, what we like is like they have what you see is what you get mechanism, which are really working. Like first time in my life I see this is working. And I heard about what you see is what you get from 90s, right? So it's really working. And
back when every agency was building their own CMS.
Yep, exactly. So we like this part. We also like the part that allow you to build very flexible documents, so you can build without coding skills, forms, forms to collect leads, things like this. So that fits us very well with this one client. And then we dig deeper and we see that also the product information management part is very, very interesting. And if you compound, content management and product information management, it occurred that that's something that is needed for fashion and for B2B, and these industries are the fastest growing industries in e-commerce. So with one solution you can help them build magazines, lead forms, workflow for new products, all kind of stuff. That's why we like the product. Mm-hmm.
Just to jump in on that real quick. And by the way, another thing I forgot to mention that you guys do, like, man, you guys do a lot of stuff, is the survey that you guys do around. It's an interesting survey you put out where you look at what, you're talking about what trends are growing the fastest, and you're not just throwing that out as a business clown. Like, these are, to use your words, these are things that you guys actually do pretty solid surveys on, which I really like, and we can talk a little bit more about that. But for as far as PIM and content management goes, like, do you see, so like, I think of PIM as like, you have an enterprise company that has a lot of products. They got to just, it's more of an issue of getting data from one system to another, versus content management is like, what kind of video or what kind of product videos are we putting out? What kind of, like unique content on social or things like that? How do you see those two? And also, you mentioned magazines. Like, how would you create a magazine off of a PIM or something? I don't get the connection there.
So we can start from the last part of the question, because you must be aware that PIMcore came from Austria, and Austria is a very close to Germany, right? And in these countries, they're building stuff. So what they need product information. They need catalogs. So in these countries, they're still printing things. They are still printing catalogs. So the whole web to print thing is really massive in Germany. I know this can sound like a science fiction for you, but they're really printing things. And if you imagine that you need to print, like, and it's not a joke, 4,000 pages catalog every quarter.
Got it.
IT for that, right? And you have like one PIM system which contains all your products in all languages. And we have several languages here. So if you imagine that every quarter you need to print 4,000 pages catalog in 70 languages with different prices and different descriptions, that's really a problematic thing. So PIM could handle this because you have like all product information in one place. So it's not very, I think, sexy in different countries, but in Germany especially, it's a very important part of PIM, this web to print. But getting back to your question, yeah, I see that for different channels, you need different information about products, right? For e-commerce, you could have like more video, more photos. For print, you need something else. For POS in the store, you need something different. And also, you could produce things and you could sell it. So, for example, for your own stores, you may have different product descriptions than for your partners, because you need to build your unique SEO, right? So suddenly you need like to have this 20 different descriptions for every product, and then you are on different markets, so you need these descriptions in different languages, and maybe units in these markets are different. So, for example, we use meters. You use foods. So you need to have one source of truth about the product, and then be able to render this to different channels. And the easiest idea is to have this just like e-commerce shop and put everything into Magento. But then, if you, even in this, the easiest case, you would like to add photos, right? And photo is the photo is done by photographer. So what you will use? Excel, and you will lose something. And in the PIM, you can build a workflow for that. So as a photographer, I am allowed to see the new products which are where photo is needed. I'm making the photo, upload the photo. Another person in the workflow gets notified. The person do the job, and so every product is moved from one stage to another to being published. So
Yeah, that seems really powerful.
yeah, and for fashion, for example, the products are changing quite fast, right? So you need to be in charge what's going on, and you need to be informed how the process is going. So are we finishing? Are we in the middle? Where is the problem? So you can see everything in the PIM. So even relatively small shops can use PIMcore to streamline the processes of adding new products. I think that's the thing, the most important.
And what are so I don't know, I always think of sort of Akinio first as a PIM just because of familiarity, not as familiar with PIMcore. What are some of the differences between the two that you sort of prefer PIMcore?
Yep. So we like PIMcore because it's very flexible. So you can build a lot of things inside of the admin panel. You can build things which are not PIM, pure PIM. So, for example, we build pure self-service portals. We build portals for lead collection, like form builders, because it's very flexible, and you can connect this with the workflow of products. So for some clients, the content is the most important part of their business. For example, we work with one publisher from Sweden. This is a huge publishing house. So they don't need a typical commerce. They need a huge product catalog to list every book, but then augment the book description with reviews from different sources, and then add to every book this where to buy buttons, right? So they're not doing direct commerce. They're like enabling people to buy in different places. So PIMcore is ideal for this kind of projects, which are somewhere between commerce, CMS things. And Kineo is a very good software, but it's a typical PIM. It's just PIM. So maybe it's even faster to implement Kineo. I don't know. I don't know the product as well. But for us, we just need something flexible, because part of our clients are not e-commerce per se, right? They want this e-commerce flavor. They came to us because we know e-commerce, but then they ask for something which is not pure commerce, like all these financial institutions, all these B2B producers. They sometimes are not eager to start e-commerce, typical e-commerce.
Right,
so
right.
That's the solution. That's why I think the PIMcore could be so helpful, because if you are running an agency and client is asking about something which is not easily done in the Magento, and you don't like WordPress because of all these security issues, you will have a problem, and PIMcore could be a solution here. So yeah, we really love the product. We had a lot of work from our side to the product, and we became like strategic partner, which means like we are part of the of the team. But and there are like, I don't know, 4 or 5 strategic partners, but PIMcore in States is not well known yet. So I think it's also opportunity for agencies in the States to just get familiar with it, because it can solve a lot of problems.
Nice. So you mentioned something that made me for some reason think about GDPR, even though it wasn't directly related, which reminded me about
I've heard your discussion with Philip. No, guys.
Which reminded me about a question I had earlier around loyalty, where you were talking about, for example, somebody uses a Visa and then that syncs them into the loyalty system. And then that got me thinking, wait a second, where's the consent? All right. Do people have to give consent on that? So I'm jumping back a little bit to other topics, but thoughts on GDPR in general, obviously a big topic, obviously in Europe. And so what are your thoughts on that? And then specifically the stuff around loyalty seems like it's going to be tricky territory. Or if you want to start off, I'm curious what you thought about our discussion, me and Phil's discussion.
Haven't you read my list of prohibited topics?
Oh, wait, here it is. Whoops.
It was in the second email.
And by the way, Tom is a lawyer and a GDPR expert, so anything that he says here is valid legal advice. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely. Yeah, so from the most important things, I'm big fan of GDPR as a idea, and I've heard your first discussion in Match Talk podcast, and the second I saw that your view changed a little bit. I'm also really interested what you think about it right now, but it's not very. If you think about it, like more philosophically, it's very wise and it's not stupid. It's complicated. It's very complex. It's scary, but we need to think about it somehow. So I'm glad that Europe is thinking about it, and of course we need a lot of time. And I don't think so that they will just close your business because you are not compliant with some checkbox. It's not working like this. So like. That's one thing, very general. The second thing is the software producers, the new ones, like we are. That's also really nice opportunity because we've heard about GDPR like 2 years ago. It was really discussed in Europe for last 2 years. So we heard about it, and our products are like compliant from the beginning because we know that it's coming. So that's also opportunity because for some clients, if you are using very old school system, it can occur that making this monster compliant with GDPR is very, very expensive, and it's better just to implement something new, right, from the scratch. So that's opportunity for our community, I think, to show the clients that we are compliant, we could build it, and you will be safe. And so I see opportunity, and of course there's a lot of work, and now we are making all of our clients compliant. But I think that the biggest problem so as you see, I'm a rather fan of this, but where I see problem is that that's typical for European Union. They publish some law which is rather general, and then every country is thinking about implementation. So implementations can differ a little bit. That's the tricky part. That's the part where you should talk with your lawyer. But we will see. At this point, I am rather optimistic. I think like after 3-4 years, we will see this as something good, because at the end we don't want to scare people, right? We as a IT community, right? I still want that people are using Facebook and things like this, right? And they feel safe about their data. So from longer perspective, it's good that we are thinking about it. I just visited China. They are much more radical about your data. So believe me, it's not.
I mean, and they're so intense about it that it's giving them a huge competitive edge within AI, because they just have mountains of data and no restrictions whatsoever. And so that's an interesting topic,
That's
all
super
that stuff.
interesting. That's super interesting. You know, it was also really interesting because I visited China and then get back to Poland for one day, and flew to, you know, to Vegas to Imagine. So I instantly compare this to, you know, IT communities, right? Really interesting thing to think about it. And the Chinese
Yeah.
are very focused, and yeah, really large opportunities there.
Yeah.
Super
Shout out to
interesting
Jason.
market. Yeah.
Jason Cochran, he said it's broad. Not exactly sure what he was referring to. China's data capabilities, but so going back to the question though about the visa thing, like, isn't that done? You thought you were gonna get away on that one. Is that and like you said, the broader principle is nobody has any idea exactly how this is going to be
Yep.
enforced. There's some ways probably to interpret it that might say that's fine. Some ways it might say it's not. But like with that
But in
specific
this
piece of
visa
functionality,
case,
yeah,
Kalen, in
yeah.
this visa case, just in case, if you are just preparing a lawsuit, don't waste your time.
Don't waste your time with Visa, right?
We can we can we can personalize offer for you, still not identifying you as a Kalen. So, for example, we could be aware that this user, without knowing the name, is buying this and that, and we could offer that. So it's like typical recommendation engine. That's one point. You could implement it like this, but you could also implement it in more straightforward way. But then, of course, you need to ask: Are you okay that we will use this data in this and that system to provide you this and that? And of course, you have this right and that and that. So the problem is here in this case, for example, that with new GDPR, we are not sure how can we collect these agreements, because I can imagine easily that, you know, you are buying something, you are paying your visa, right? And the sales clerk is asking you, can I use this data? And you just say yes, and it's recorded. Like we recorded your audio, and we are fine with that. Are we or are we not? Who knows, right? There's
No one
nothing
knows.
about the GDPR, right?
Yeah. No one has
That's
any
the fun
idea.
stuff. Yeah.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, we're not lawyers. Like,
Yeah, and like you said, having the flexibility in place to kind of respond to that flexibly within open loyalty specifically is going to be useful. So sorry, I jumped into that topic. We are talking PIM, and then I jumped way over there.
yeah, absolutely. It's really a hot topic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to PIM, right? For just for a 5 second, I would like strongly advise all listeners to just check the PIM. It's pimcore.org. You can just check the demo. There's like a separate demo for PIM and separate demo for CMS. So it's even easier to, you know, familiarize. And there's also interesting part of PIMcore, which I think will be hot in the future, which is master data management, MDM. I've heard that once you asked Philip, what is it for, this MDM? when you discuss PIMcore. I noticed that. So it's master data management. So it's to manage all your data sets. So in one PIMcore, you could manage your data set of products, of clients, for example. So you could build something like similar to CRM, and then use these two data sets to create a personalization offer for every client. So this MDM, it's from, you know, old school IT, but it's very powerful in today's world. And I think that's also giving you interesting opportunities. And, you know, because of this module, we as a rather small company are able to discuss projects with energy companies or financial companies, banks, because PIMCore is open source, is PHP based, but the functionalities are rather enterprise. So that's also interesting opportunity for agency. I can imagine if you are like 50 people agency and you work with bank, but doing really not so sexy stuff like landing pages. So with PIMCore, you could start discussion about something bigger with them, and still you have your tech stack, which is PHP. So stack is very close to Magento, but the possibilities are just larger.
Right.
That's the point. That's the selling point.
Right. What do you think about, there B2B is this huge wave. Every agency is trying to get on top of that wave. Everybody that you ask what their specialization is, it's B2B. But agencies like you
I
guys,
saw your question, right? It was not instantly everyone tried to sell you something.
yeah.
Only experts.
But all experts all the time. But there are agencies like you guys, like my buddy Isaiah with Trellis, that's been doing B2B for 6 years or more, and that really have specialized it. What would be actually Philip Jackson talked about this on a recent episode where he's like, man, we have to prepare ourselves in this community for the kind of this wave of business, even getting familiar with the language. What does punching out a catalog mean? And what are the different things these companies need to do? What would be your advice to agencies that are trying to get into this space and they don't quite have the same experience that you have, but they're trying to get into it? What should they be focusing on? What resources should they be looking at? What should they be prioritizing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really a nice question.
Help your competitors out here for a minute.
Really good one. I'm totally, to be honest, I'm totally okay with competitors because, as I told you, we work a lot with agencies, a lot. So I also see showing the new possibilities to these agencies is bringing business them, and it's bringing business to us and to Magento, PIMCore, and all our partners. So it's super cool. I think what's very positive that we're winning projects against very old school IT companies, because if you ask your clients, B2B clients, about their vendors, not agencies, not digital agencies, right, or other old school IT companies. So I think we're making our cake just bigger. We are not stealing one from another. So only to say this. I think that if you start with B2B, you should really think about first project as a lesson. And we started our first project with really deep analytical phase and research phase. So, for example, we do user research. We visited end clients in places where they work. We talk with them. We observe how they work. So we really done all this, design thinking, by the book process. And we learn a lot by doing so. And there are things you can't even imagine if you are in B2C, like really crazy ones. And I think you can't research in internet. You must meet with these people and feel it. So I think that's the good advice. Just meet not your client, but clients of your client. Really meet them, visit them, see how they work, how they think. As you say, the words they're using, totally different words. Sometimes very funny, sometimes very strange for us, right? And yeah, that's something I would. Yeah, if I need to start from the beginning, I would start from this. again.
And when you say the clients of your clients, what do you mean by that? What's an example of that?
So I can give you an example. So once we work for the company which is selling construction blocks. You build, houses with using these blocks. So our idea was, okay, these guys, they will need a mobile app, because we are building something and suddenly you are out of something and you need to order this. So as a this construction worker, you can just take your phone and order this, right? Sounds reasonable, right? Isn't it?
Right.
Okay, thanks. So then we visited the construction area. We saw how these people are really working. What occurred? They are smartphone owners, but they left their smartphones in the car or at home to keep them safe, and instead they bring old school Nokias, because they are resistant to dust. And can be used even in gloves, So they don't need an app; they need a call center. They will not use an app. And this kind of insights, you will gather this kind of insights only seeing how these end clients are working and what are the needs that B2B system must address. And for your client, I think it's not easy to see, because B2B clients, they usually sell through sales reps, right? So they don't know what's going on in their own channel, because sales reps just visit clients or call them. It's not recorded, it's not translated, so they have no clue. So when they want to digitize their business, usually they don't know what's needed. So they can't specify the agency what's needed, or they just guess. So the good agency must just forget about it and visit end clients and collect real use cases. I think that's important.
Gotcha. So use cases for the customers of your clients, like you're saying, the construction workers that are using it, how are they using it day to day, or the sales reps on the ground, talking to them to kind of collect that intelligence that doesn't exist anywhere. It's just inside of a person's brain.
Yeah, you summarize it very, very well. But that's expensive, right? It's not a fast project. I think in B2B there are no shortcuts, but because it's about digital transformation, not about just upgrading eShop like in B2C.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. That's a great quote, by the way. That's an interesting perspective. So it's almost like if I'm an agency trying to figure this out, it's like, hey, you know what? Tell the client, like, listen, we're going to do this for free. Let's not do a proposal, over the internet, over the phone. I'm going to come out. We're going to visit you guys. We're going to just learn, we're going to look at some of the problems, challenges you have, and we're just going to give you some suggestions. And that's probably something that's very easy for a company to say yes to, because like you said, these are companies that are big, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people involved in this decision. But if you said, hey, look, we're going to come out, make some observations, give you some advice for free, and you have an existing relationship, how can they say no to that? And then you get in there and then you can give some really good advice and maybe get a deal.
And I think part of your job would be to find a consensus between all these guys, because all these guys will meet at one table, right? They will argue. And if you have data to back your ideas, you win, and you can, help them to find a common ground. And they will literally pay for that. They will love you because of that, right? Because I saw B2B projects that can't be started because the stakeholders inside the company can't, figure out the
Right.
one model for B2B commerce, right?
Right. And it's
And
not
without
because like
information, yeah.
it's not
Hmm?
because they're dumb. It's because it's a hard problem. You have a larger
Okay.
company, more moving parts, a different way of doing business, different kind of inertia. And so
Absolutely.
it seems like that's and then you go into that room and then if they can see that you sort of see the bigger picture better than they do, you're like, oh, hey, by the way, here's what I heard from sales. And then the one person
Hmm?
says, oh, that's true. And then you say, oh, and here's what I see in marketing. And then the other person says, oh, that's true. And all of a sudden they can see that you're seeing the bigger picture, like really in depth with their organization, not just on a high level. I could see how that would really kind of build some trust.
Yeah, and they will treat you as this one guy who understands us all, right? The guy got it. So instantly you will become a VIP in this organization.
Right, right. Very cool. Well,
Cool.
Tom, we've gone for a solid 2 hours. I'm very happy with this. I've been trying to
Oh,
take
that's
these
amazing.
longer and longer. I really enjoy kind of the long form conversation. We were able to get a lot of different topics. We're gonna obviously put this out on audio feed so people can listen to it when you're doing your dishes, riding your bike, going for a run, when you're on site with a client doing research. So Tom, thanks a lot. You've already pointed out some mini advertisements, some mini what's the word I'm looking for? You've told some people where to go to, but where can people
Hackathon,
check you out?
Slack.
Hackathon. So yeah, so anything you want to point people to?
Yeah. Guys, just try View Storefront, check our GitHub, check Hackathon, and check the Slack channel.
Awesome. Well, thanks. I'm just checking to see if there's any last words. Mark Lewis, client empathy. Absolutely. That's a key there. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We have tomorrow, we're doing Mage Talk Live actually with Max Bucknell. We're going to be talking about GraphQL, which ties in obviously really nicely with PWA and everything like that. So check that out on the Mage Talk channel tomorrow. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks all. Thanks, Kalen. Bye.